Oh, wow.
That's new.
That is new. So welcome everybody. And first of all, a huge thank you for this past weekend. It was hot. Everybody was great about making their times and really being cooperative with us. This is a bit of a new process, and we had close to 80 orders to get out in a day and a half. And so thank you for everybody that helped pick the orders, helped organize the orders, helped get the orders out, and for everybody who planted and got their gardens in. I know there's a few that are still waiting to get that done, and please keep us posted and let us know when that happens. So we're going to start each meeting with just a couple of housekeeping rules. So sorry, you'll hear them at the beginning of each one. First of all, if everybody can make sure they know where their raised hand function is, because it tends to be in different places. It can be, it's most often under the participants box. It can be just by itself in the toolbar. It can be in reactions, which is not the high five. It's actually, we'll say raise hand, or under more. So look for those, because Kat and I will look to address people in order, and try to avoid too much back and forth, which tends to delay the meeting sometimes. Mute yourself when you're not speaking. That helps us avoid feedback that happens once in a while. And we aim to keep the meetings as close to an hour as we can. We just heard some of the chat before this. It's at 9 o'clock, I'm going to bed, I'm too tired, right? So we really try to respect that, and we're going to start every meeting right at 8 o'clock now. I know in the past we've been going, okay, we'll give everybody a couple minutes to get in, but we're going to start right at 8 with in respect to everybody's time. Whoever's hosting the meeting is going to really try and keep things on track, and we know that we have a question and answer period, and that's great. Try and keep your questions to questions that might appeal to the broader group. If there's something that's really specific that you're dealing with, reach out to us afterwards, and we will do our best to find an answer for you. Or if the host, I don't want to say cut, we'd never cut anybody off, but if we redirect or try to stop, please don't take offense to it. We're just trying to keep things moving and be respectful of everybody's time. So I think that's it. We're going to get going. I am not the expert tonight, but I do have a PowerPoint that I threw together this afternoon. So those of you who have been around Equal Ground for a while, we are so thankful when we have the Master Gardeners come here and talk, because they've got a lot more lived experience, and they really are the experts. I am not an expert. I am a community development person who thinks that gardening is magic. And so I've learned a few things along the way, and I do my best. So I'm going to present what I have learned about watering, and I know that there'll probably be some more comments after. So let me just get my screen up here. Why is it not? 1 second. Okay. Okay, can everybody see that? Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, and I will tell you that Kat has shared a handbook that the board has put together with a lot of really neat tips and tricks and things that we've picked up along the way, and questions that we've tried to capture and answer. So many of you have that link. I'd really recommend that you take the time to look at that. And if you haven't, then you wouldn't know that I've stolen a lot of that from that handbook, but this is where we go. So proper watering is really, really critical. It's probably one of the most underestimated, simplest tasks to your garden, and it's what can make or break your garden. And because I've just put this together this afternoon, I can see somehow this has gotten out of order. So bear with me 1 second. Sorry, folks. Huh. This is what happens when you're trying to put things together in the last minute here. Okay. Nope. Sorry, folks, we're almost there. Glad we're recording this part, eh? All right. Okay, so here we've got, this is going to take me back. Sorry, I've got a bit of latency on my computer. Do's and don'ts. For watering, we strongly recommend that you do it in the morning, early morning if possible. I know that it's popular to believe that either morning or night, because you're talking about cooler temperatures. So from that perspective, that is true, cooler temperatures. The disadvantage to watering at night is you keep moisture on the leaves for a long period of time in cooler temperatures, and that leads to disease. I suspect that that's one of the most common reasons people run into problems with their tomatoes. So if you're watering early in the morning, you've got hours of time for those leaves to dry off. So we highly, unless it's an emergency, try not to water at night. The argument for watering in the afternoon is a lot of water will evaporate in the heat off the surface of your soil, but there's ways to avoid that as well. My goal is to tell you always make sure there's hours of drying time when you're, and if you end up doing it in the heat of the day, then you're going to have to take some other mitigating actions for it. Really important that you water deeply and less often. So a caveat, there's a caveat to this. Obviously, when you just transplant your seedlings or you just plant seed, you need to water every day until they're established. And that has a range, but anywhere really from 7 to 14 days, you're going to be watering those every day. Really important. Mulching. Mulching has a number of benefits. The most commonly known is to stop the evaporation of the moisture from the soil, hold the moisture in the ground, keep the soil cool, and when you're watering, if you can't get down and water really low, which is important, we'll talk about that a bit more later. If the water droplets are bouncing off the ground, if you've got mulch in there, it's bouncing off the mulch and onto the leaves. It's not bouncing off the soil, which may have some bacteria or anything in it, onto the plant. So that's the other benefit. It just, again, it's another separation of any possible disease that could be bouncing back up onto your plant. I'm going to highlight a little bit what I was saying there. As much as you can when you're watering, water at the base of your plant. We were all taught, and I think most of us have the habit of standing there with our shower, hose and doing this, going back and forth over the tops of the plants. Again, you're getting your leaves all wet. You're not watering deeply enough in most cases that way. So where you can get that water hose right to the base of the plant, water the plant, not the whole bed. And just because your soil on top looks wet does not mean you've watered enough. And we will talk more about that. If you always think about, I want really good roots on my plants, well, your roots are reaching for water. That's what they do. They need to water itself, the plant. So if it doesn't have to reach anywhere, because there's just stuff sitting at the top, there's water sitting at the top, you don't get a strong plant, you don't get strong root system, and it's just not a healthy plant. You have to have some tough love. Try and group the plants together that have the same kind of watering needs. And I suspect Anne may talk a little bit about this when she talks about companion planting. Companion planting isn't just about plants that get along and like each other. It's really about utilizing things like they have the same watering needs, they have the same soil needs, they have the same spacing needs. And so that adds to the efficiency of your garden as well. So if you have, plants that do really well in more drought, plant them together. If you have plants that need lots of water, do them together. If you have plants that are likely to flower around the same time and start to grow their fruit, put them together. So tomatoes and peppers are a great example. Plants need more water when they start to flower and start to get their fruit on them. So if they're going to do that around the same time, makes a lot of sense to keep them together so you're maximizing the water in the space. And observe. Observe what your plants are doing. Just because it's Wednesday doesn't mean your plants need to be watered. Or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday doesn't mean they need to be watered. And I'm not going to get into this too much tonight, but just because a plant is droopy does not always necessarily mean it needs water. That is a plant's natural reaction to conserve its energy. And you could, in some cases, not water at all, and it bounces right back the next day. It's conserving its energy. So really, it's about testing the soil. Leaves curling up can mean something different than leaves curling down. So you want to look those things up because we don't have time to get into that tonight. This is a very general statement I'm about to make because it could mean other things, but brown leaves often mean not enough water. Yellow leaves often mean too much water. They can mean other things as well, but in terms of the watering scale, those are a couple of indicators. Don'ts. We talked a little bit about top watering. Where possible, do not water from the top. Sorry, I've got the participants box sitting here over my, there we go. Under and over watering, we've discussed both are as detrimental as the other. Generally speaking, they talk about being able to water what would accumulate to an inch of water. That doesn't sound like much. There's an interesting way to test that. If you had an old, I guess an old tuna or salmon can, they're a little bit more than an inch. Put that where you're watering. Rinse it out, ideally. Put it where you're watering and water the way you normally would. And then when that's full, so if you're doing the back and forth, which back and forth is good because it gives time for it to sink in over here before you come back again, right? But I challenge you all to do the typical the way we think we water, the back and forth, See how long it takes to fill up that tuna can, because that's how long you need to water your garden for. And if any of you have the same memories I have of my grandpa sitting on the porch with the hose watering the lawn, I don't know, as a kid, he was probably there for an hour and a half. It seemed like he was there for 7 hours. But it was the slow, steady watering. And we just talked about it tonight. It rained for about a second, or it rained for 30 seconds. Well, what do you think we're doing when we do this? Right? So just keep that in mind. I always like to kind of water enough in one spot that it kind of ponds, and then I keep going across. And if that ponding sinks in within a few seconds, you still need to do more. If it sits there for a little bit, then you're good, okay? They talk about trying not to use, and I'm guilty of this one. If you've got the multi-nozzle hose ends, sprayers, nozzles, whatever they're called, you've got all kinds of different options. You've got spray and jet and shower and soak. If you're using the ones, say like shower or mist even, you're just really, you're probably top watering. 2, you're wasting a lot of the water because some of it's evaporating before it even touches your plant, especially in the heat that we're dealing with. And 3, if it's windy, it's completely missing your plant altogether. So not always the most efficient settings. If I like soaker because it's quick and it's putting a fair amount of water all at once in one spot right on your plant rather than everything else. Don't do lightly and often. We've gone over that. Deeply and less often is more important. So once you get beyond the establishment period of a week to 2 weeks, ideally you want to be looking at 2 to 3 times a week of deep watering. I know that sometimes when we get those prolonged day, a week of 30 degrees, you probably can't do only 2 to 3 times a week. Once we're past July, you should be able to get down to once to twice a week if you're watering that quick enough. But the lightly and often, again, weak plant, and just not establishing a good root system. For any of you that grow root vegetables, a radish, if you've ever pulled out a radish that's got a root like this, it's looking for water. So it's not a bad thing to have long roots. You probably don't want to have a root that long because it's thinking, where the heck is my water? And the last one I put in here in reference to my mentor, Andy Tonkin, who continually tells me to stop babying my plants. And he's very right on that. And we've talked a lot about this in here. It's kind of like tough love with your kids. If you don't make your plants work a little bit, they're not going to be strong, and you're not going to get good genetics out of your plant. If you have I'm going to pick a tomato for an example. If you have a tomato plant that does very well in a drought type of summer, even though you're watering, and you get this great, big, beautiful, lovely tomato, I'm sorry to say, do not eat that tomato. That is the one that you want the seeds from. And that is the one that you want to plant next year because it's already shown to have a good, strong genetic code, and it's tough. It can last through things. And I say that about all of your plants. So try and find that balance. Watering every day, once you're beyond the establishment period, is not a good thing. That's probably the biggest thing that I want to impart here. So mulching, there are inorganic mulches, but I'm not going to talk about the inorganic ones. These are some of the organic mulches. Straw, often sold at the farms around. Wood chips, nuggets, and bark. I just want to make a quick comment about wood chips. So many of you know that the municipalities often have wood chips available for free. Their forestry department has cut down some trees and they've left them out there. Those wood chips are great for paths. They are not great as mulch because they're not dried. They're too fresh, and those are going to suck all kinds of nitrogen out of your beds. So use them for pathways, use them for around your beds. But if you put fresh wood chips that are not aged or dried into your bed, you're sucking a lot of your nitrogen out of there. So just a heads up on that one. Grass clippings or shredded leaves. It's important that you shred the leaves to do this. Again, a natural thing. Ideal to let the grass clippings dry out a little bit, but not necessary. And then you don't have to ship them off to the city. You're going to make good use of them. Cardboard or newspaper. Many of you may remember putting your beds in and we said, hey, line the bottoms with cardboard or newspaper. It's the same thing with the top. You can do this on the top. This is a bit more problematic because, it dries up, it blows away. You can't really keep it wet. So unless you're going to put wood chips or bark or something on top of that, I don't find that to be my favorite on top. Cocoa chips, I have nothing to offer on that. That was something that was listed on a site and I don't know anything about them. So maybe later if somebody else has had some experience with them, that would be good. Composted animal manure. This is important. It should be composted. It should not be fresh animal manure. I know growing up, that was a normal thing. You put fresh manure on it. It's depending on which animal you're using it from, it can be too high in nitrogen. It can be too acidic. And certainly if you're in any of the public spaces, you are not allowed to do it. You have to measure the temperatures, you have to do, because there's all kinds of pathogens and stuff that you could be dealing with. So really, get some aged stuff and make sure it's composted. And then there's always compost as well that can be used as a top dressing. Every time it rains, it's just going to soak down into your bed and feed it. So those are all good, relatively inexpensive, except for, I don't know, cocoa chips sound expensive to me. I have no idea if they are, but they sound more expensive than all the rest of the stuff like animal poop and straw. So moisture meter. This is probably the best investment you'll ever make. I think these cost about $10 now at Canadian Tire, maybe on Amazon. I just have one like this. They have all kinds of fancy digital ones. Don't need them. But and it's really important that you put the spike, the reader, down to where you believe the roots to be to get a good read. And you want to stay in between that 4 and 7 range, and ideally really between the 4 and 5, because that's part of a don't baby your plants, right? So I can't recommend enough to get one of those. It will save your life in terms of trying to guess how much water you've got in there. There's also, there's the finger test, right? If you put your finger into the second knuckle, generally what you're looking for is if the soil feels cool and damp, not moist, but damp, then it's ready to water. If it's really wet, then don't water. And if it's dry, if it feels completely dry, then you're a little late coming to the watering. So really, but that's kind of that not as accurate as doing the meter. So you have to really get a good feel for what is dry and what is moist and what is soaked, and you get that over time. So this is not specific to watering, but we've heard some questions this week that I wanted to make sure that we addressed. One of the questions were about the celery. The celery was really tall. It was grown in a greenhouse and it kind of went crazy, and people were asking, can we cut it back? I would say in most, if not all cases of that celery, you will see new growth in the center of the bottom of it. In fact, many of you have probably done this in a dish with water, right? You've started your own celery or romaine or whatever. You can cut those big tall ones back if you see that fresh beginnings in the bottom, and then you're just going to get a new plant. Same kind of question about the tomatoes and peppers. Tall, lanky, you put them in as you normally would and it's windy. Are they going to be strong enough? So any plant, I would say, that is lanky and kind of weak looking, I would plant as deep as you can. You've got a bit more leniency with tomatoes and peppers because both tomatoes and peppers put out roots from their stems. Most of you have probably seen that happen with a tomato. If it falls over and touches the dirt, all of a sudden it starts growing these roots, these hairs on it. You don't see it as often on peppers because peppers tend to grow quite straight. So two options, I would say, if they're tall and skinny and wobbly, take your bottom leaves off, dig as deep as you can to plant 2/3 of the plant in there, and leave about 1/3 up. If you don't have the ability to dig that deep, maybe you've got narrow beds, you can plant them sideways. I have not done this with a pepper yet, but I do it all the time with tomatoes. In fact, I did it with the ones in my garden this year. You literally plant them on their side, and you bury the stem up to where you kind of want to start the new plant. And you give it a couple of days and the plant is just naturally going to come up towards the sun. And that's where you want to make sure you're putting your stake or your cage. You just got to be a little bit careful where you place it because you've got that other stem underneath there. But now you'll get a really good strong plant, strong stem. It'll be a lot smaller than you started, but we've got time. You're good. My kale came back and has some yellow flowers on it. So lots of us had kale over winter. Is it good to eat? Well, once it flowers, it's probably pretty bitter. It won't hurt you, but it's pretty bitter. What I would recommend and what we do is, because we had a lot of kale come back this year, we removed all of the plants except for one. We kept the bushiest and, the one with the most flowers on it. And we're going to let that one go to seed, and we'll collect seed for that next year. And then that's one less thing we need to buy seed or get seed for. So I would recommend that you all do that. And it is the flower that turns to seed. And I believe kale, there might be somebody on here that can correct me, but I believe kale is also a biennial, so it seeds every 2 years. So you kind of want to take advantage of that when you have it. Are there any more plants or seeds? Yes. So we still have some. If you are interested in picking up more, maybe just make a note in the chat saying interested. If there are enough people that are interested, then I will put more out on my front lawn tomorrow. If there are not enough people that are interested, we're going to go to our phase 2 of our next diversion for the plants. And by the way, we never throw them out. So we do find homes, but this group always has first access to it. And another thing that's a little bit off topic, some of you got these in your kits if you're a host gardener or a community champion. The first version had lines where it says, today I shared, and a line from my garden with a line. We've discovered that line kind of makes it hard for you to write the number in there and the thing. So our new version of them is this. But if you did not get any of those, we've just ordered more, and they're actually ready. I'm going to pick them up tomorrow. So maybe get in touch with Kat and let her know that you didn't get any and you'd like some. We'd really like people to use these. This is not about bragging. It's not, oh, look what I did. This is really about letting the community know what is possible, what they can be part of, what we're doing collectively. And it's also a way for you to track how much you've donated and report back to us. So again, we can come up with this number collectively saying, hey, as a group, this is what we put back into the community. And as a reminder, today I shared 10 pounds of food from my garden with, last year was really just the 2 food banks, which are still great options. We decided that it doesn't matter who you're sharing them with, as long as you're sharing 20%, because if you're sharing with your neighbor or your friend or a soup kitchen or a university student, whatever, that still means that you and your family are getting healthy, fresh, local food, and you're also creating or helping to create more of a food secure community. So wherever that goes, that's helping. It doesn't have to be specific. But if we're not doing it only to the food banks, it's really important to us that we track this. If you're nervous about taking your picture and putting it on Facebook or sending it to us, please at least track it. Just again for our metrics, because we need metrics for grants and stuff like that. So we really ask that you do that, and huge kudos to Kat who designed this postcard. Okay, and I think that's all I've got for the watering. I think that we'll open up the questions. We do have a couple of things for announcements, which I'm trying to find my little scrap piece of paper just to keep everybody up to date on things. But I will stop sharing my screen here. And now that a lot of you have planted or have received your plants and seeds, we suspect that there might be some questions out there. So we can open this up to the group to see if there's comments or questions. Oh geez, look at that. I almost got right to the 8:30 mark. And look at everybody being shy. And try to remember to put your hand up if you can. There's some really shy people. There's a lot of black squares in here. Everybody's tired. Tina, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
I haven't planted all my seeds yet. I got a question and a comment. I haven't planted the seeds yet. So how many seeds do I put in, like when I dig up the ground?
Well, that's not as easy of a question as you would think. It depends what kind of seeds.
Because I got the seeds for the cucumbers and the beans and I think a few other ones, but I'm not quite sure
I was
exactly.
waiting to see if the third one you gave, because the first two have two different planting methods. I was waiting for you to tell me like seed or carrots or lettuce. That would be a third different planting method. So beans, you want to put 1 inch to 2 inches apart. I just use my fingers. Some people use a trowel just to make a little trench.
Yeah, because I planted some of the cucumbers today and I put 3 seeds and one little, like, dig a really big hole. So I don't know if I did that right, but
Well, you'll be okay because the soil's warm enough. Typically, what you want to do with any kind of squash seed is you want to make a little mound and
okay,
plant 3 to 4 seeds in the mound. And
okay.
the reason that's done is because the seeds like warmer soil.
Well, because I put the water first and first I dug the hole and I put a little bit of water in there and then I put 3 seeds on for the cucumbers and I put like, so far I think I planted 3 or 4 because it started to rain today. So I didn't get as much as I wanted it done today, but.
Well, Tina, we'd like you to report back and tell us how it works out with the cucumbers in a hole, because I've never done it. So you may
Okay.
have just discovered something that works really, really well.
Well, see, I don't have a lot of gardening experience, but I did live on a vegetable farm.
Yep.
So, so with the seeds that we did, we used to transplant them first until they got a little bit bigger. But I'm thinking can't transplant right now because it's kind of late now in the season. So I just thought, I'll just put 3 seeds in one because I got a lot of squirrels that come from my next door neighbor, so I wasn't quite sure exactly. So I thought I'll just try it. See what happens.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's what gardening's about, is trying things. I mean, you've got it right in terms of doing the 3 or 4 in a spot. Typically it's in a mound, but let's see if this works. I mean,
Yeah. And also the one thing I've been messaging Caitlin, sorry, I have a friend that name is Caitlin.
That's okay.
If anybody has any extra topsoil right now, because my money is really limited, I'm on a very strict fixed income. So if anybody has any extra topsoil that I can have, that would be greatly appreciated.
Are you county or city, Tina?
Um,
Where do you live?
City.
I live right in Brantford.
City.
All right.
City,
Okay.
sorry, yes.
We'll see if we can find anything. If anybody else has any, ours has all been moved now, but we'll see what we can come up with for you.
I wasn't quite sure exactly how much
compost.
Right. So I don't know how many bags because I'm guessing now. I'm just roughly estimating. I think I got a land by like 14 by 16 inches.
That's
feet,
how much
sorry,
space.
and feet,
Okay.
right?
So Tina, reach out to us after in terms of what you think if you think it's 14 by 16, we'll see. I can't promise anything, but we'll see what we can come up with for you.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
No problem. No problem at all. All right. Anybody else here?
Oh, I think Natalie, you have a question, Natalie?
Yeah, I'm just a little bit of a concern. So I planted my blueberries, and knowing that they need acidic ground, I got a bunch of pine needles from my in-laws who have this big old pine tree. And in the hole before putting the actual blueberries, I put a bunch of needles in there. And then I put the actual transplant, and then I also put more needles on the surface. Is water getting through the needles, or I'm a little worried that I'm not watering them enough?
So this is always the question with mulching as well, too, right? If people have straw there, it's like, okay, great, it's holding the water in. How do I get it in there in the first place, right? So, I mean, water will find its way down. Again, this comes back to that soaker setting on your, on your hose, or if you don't have a setting, then you're even better. Just get it right down in there. If you're still feeling like it's not getting through, just back them up a little bit while you water and push them back in. Blueberries are very finicky in an urban setting. So if it fails, it's not necessarily like you're doing everything that you can to try and help it along. So I just want to say up front, if something doesn't work with them, it's not going to be your fault. You're doing everything that you can to try and add that to the soil. They're tricky in an urban setting.
Okay, I'll probably have to move the needles because this is for my victory garden, and so I don't know that I can get my hose all the way there. So I've just been
Oh,
using a
okay.
watering can.
Okay, yeah. So, or unscrew the sprinkle part of it if it does unscrew, and just
I could try.
it will go through, but you just want to make sure enough goes through. Right?
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Natalie. Next, we've got Cheryl, the other Cheryl. It's kind of like my brother Daryl and my other brother Daryl. Where are you, Cheryl?
Hi, just a question about the grass cuttings. How deep would you have them if you're mulching them around your plant?
Well, sorry, I'm as deep as the amount of grass I have. So that's my practicality, right? I have this much grass, that's how deep it's going to be. Again, you're just trying to kind of seal off the top part of the soil. So if you can get a couple inches, that's fantastic. I think anything more than an inch is good. If you can an inch, less than an inch, you're going to be struggling. I would be aiming for at least 2 to 3 inches.
Okay, thank you.
Keeps the soil cool too, right? It's not just about the moisture. It's also about it's a barrier, right? Next we've got Jane.
I have a question about the peppers that we got. I don't know which ones are hot ones and which one are not. Like they didn't seem to be labeled at all. So it's going to be a surprise?
Yeah, we have, so yes, this is one of our challenges. We have a very generous city greenhouse that grows a lot of plants for us. The downfall is the city greenhouse is used to growing things in bulk because they go to a location and everything that's in that tray goes into that location, right? And so we get whatever it is, 48 plants in a tray. So this is, I'm going to give you a general, do all of your peppers look exactly the same?
Some are lighter green and some are darker.
And
that's about it.
Yep. And are the lighter green ones, do they have is the leaf a little bit pointier than they look almost the same as the others, but maybe just a bit more of a point?
I don't know. I didn't notice.
I would think that the lighter ones are going to be your hot. Take a look and see if they're a little bit pointier than the darker colored ones. And then my most educated guess would be that those are your hot ones, and the darker green with a little bit more rounded leaf is your sweet pepper.
Okay.
Or a surprise. What's wrong with a mystery garden?
Sure.
All right, Marianne.
Yeah.
Hi, what are your thoughts on soaker hoses?
Soaker hoses are great. So, and you can put them on timers as well. I just have never been organized enough to kind of, because the upfront setup takes some time, right? Because you've got to get your connector and you've got to have, depending on how your rows are. If you've got a great big long row, you're great. If you've got a bunch of little rows, it's trying to get that right set up. But I think they're good because I think that's the same as, what we refer to as a long, steady rain. So you're getting a more equalized kind of moisture going in, right? And if you're so inclined, you can set up a timer to it. But I think soaker hoses are great. They're at the base of the plant, which is exactly what you want. It's light, slow, steady, so that you know that you're getting a full soaking. Never ever judge your soil by the top inch. So when you look at your soil and you go, oh my gosh, that's really dry, stick your finger in, because if it's holding, it might be, well, same thing. Oh my gosh, that's really wet. So ignore the top inch of your soil because it's only reacting to the environment outside. It doesn't mean that's what your roots are experiencing.
Like, do you have to spread them out so far, or does it soak a good amount?
There's different soaker hoses, but for the most part, I mean, if you're putting them by your seedlings, for instance, you're usually spacing your rows and seeds. So if you put it right up against your row of stems, basically, you're going to be good. It's not going to, it's very difficult to overwater, number one. But even harder with a soaker hose because you've got that even distribution, right? It's not in one pocket or one. So no, they're very, very good. Soaker hoses are great. And thank you for bringing that up because I did mean to mention that as a good option.
Thank you.
Is that it?
It looks like it.
Okay.
I think so.
I have a couple of reminders and I haven't even looked at the chat yet. So do we have a bunch of people that we do not have?
No, I
habanero?
answered them.
Okay, thank you. But we've got, are there
We
people?
don't have habanero?
We don't have habanero.
Okay.
We do have hot peppers, but not habanero specifically. We have
Okay.
we have jalapeno, we have Hungarian hot.
Hungarian, that's the other one.
That's
Okay.
probably the one you were thinking about.
Yeah. Okay. And that was it.
Okay. Interest in peppers or cucumbers. Okay. So I'm not going to be putting out a list of what's all there just because I don't have the time to do it, but I will tell you there are onions. So I'll give you a real quick rundown, and this means I'm forgetting some. So it really, if you want some plants, it's really worth coming to kind of filter through. So we've got thyme, we've got some parsley, we've got onions, we've got kohlrabi, we've got sweet peppers, hot peppers. There's a few more tomatoes, and Kat, I know, got some more.
Yes.
There's celery. I've got a bunch of seed packets out on the chair there that you can go through and help yourself to. So the seeds are out there right now, and I'm happy to move more plants out if enough people want them, because otherwise I got to move them all back again, right? And I'm starting to feel a little bit lazy. So so I'll take a look at the chat after and or before we leave, and I'll tell you whether or not I'm going to put them out. But because then we'll go to our next. Again, like I say, we don't throw them out. We find homes. That would be horrible for us. All right, we've got Cheryl again.
Cheryl and Marianne, yeah.
Cheryl, this is just a quick question. Do you know if Cedarland got any water?
This is a question I'm getting from all of the community gardens. So I know, I don't know. I am thinking no. I did not hear back today. I sent a message last night. I'm going to check in again. We've got 2 issues going on that we're trying to resolve. So bear with us, folks. I have sent the message that this is the worst time ever to have this problem because we need to put water down every day. So we are trying to rectify that. We also have ordered a number of those large white totes rather than the rain barrels. So we will be getting those distributed. They're just trying to figure out, because of course those take a lot longer to fill. So now there's an operational issue on the other side of this. So I don't know for sure, Cheryl, but my guess is no, because I have not heard anything back. So I'm very sorry about that.
Okay.
Marianne.
It's supposed to get cooler tonight. Is anybody else covering tomatoes and peppers? No? Okay.
No. Okay, this is what I learned about the baby thing. And this whole discussion went on one of the community groups I'm on. So lots of people will tell you anything under 10 degrees, cover them, take them in. I go down to 5 degrees, and that's only because I account for the weather report being wrong, and at 5 it might go down to 0. If I knew it was going to be 3 or 4 or even 2, I would still be okay. I would still leave them at this point, especially they're established. So, and believe me, I was really nervous about that before. It's tried and true. I've done it, tried and true. I've done it the past 3 years. And even this year, once it started consistently getting to 6, 7, again, because I got lazy and I got sick to death of pulling everything in and out. And I'll always leave one sacrificial one to try it first, because I still don't trust it, but it does work. So, all right, I think we're good, folks.
I
Again,
think so.
always let us know if you have needs. We are going to have more of those cards, so please let us know if you didn't get them, if you need them. Do we have a bunch of people here before we sign off so I can say whether or not I'm leaving them out?
No.
Okay,
Do you have any radish seeds? We have radish seeds? I would think we do.
yeah, we have radish seeds out there. Okay.
Yes.
All right,
That's it.
so what I'll do, folks, there's just, I'm just gonna save this chat here, and then I will reach out to the handful of you that want something specific and let you know if we have the specific thing, but please, everybody stop by. There is stuff out there. If you're coming by and you think you want something specific, just shoot me an email and I'll let you know if I think we have it or not.
Mhm.
Meeting again once it is done. So is somebody, sorry, somebody asking, oh, I've only got part of the message. Sorry, I've got 13 things on my screen here. Okay,
I don't see that one.
okay, so we're recording stuff. So I'm gonna stop record right now because I'm rambling.